Hello and welcome. What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us on our pilot show, our pilot stream of Jules Investigates. I am the Squeegee of Justice, and you may know me from Trial TV Live. Tonight, we have a great show for you. Jules has, as she does Jules things, been digging and investigating, and she ran across some documents, I believe. I'm not even 100% sure, but Jules will reveal all in a few minutes with Dr. Joe or concerning Dr. Joe. And you may know Dr. Joe from the Maya trial. And Jules will be with us to talk about what she has uncovered. And Jules and I have worked together on the Sarah Boone and Ashley Benefield trials. We have been there at both of those. I was at the sentencing of Ashley. Jules was actually at the trial. But Jules is a great friend of ours, a great friend of the channel, and her and Aaron were talking the other day, and Jules said she had found something. And Aaron actually came up with this idea of, well, let's do a side broadcast called Jules Investigates. So we're really happy and excited that you guys have joined us for this initial stream. Thank you for the RA raid, Scott. Fantastic. A lot of you know that Scott and we have worked together with the Sarah Boone trial. Scott lent us his streaming equipment, so I was there streaming using his equipment. So again, thank you guys for joining us, the RA raid. Really appreciate it. And we're really excited that Kurt, Uncivil Law, will be joining us as well to break down all the legal, if it does come to that, which I believe it will. I'm not sure what these documents will reveal, but Kurt will give us his opinion, his professional opinion. Kurt is a great legal mind, and we're really happy and excited that he is with us on our initial broadcast as well. So without further ado, let's bring out Jules first, and then Kurt, I will bring you out. So we'll take you one at a time. Hello, Jules. How are you?
Hi, Chris. I'm nervous. How are you?
You're nervous? Oh, don't be nervous. It'll be cool.
I am nervous. Look, Frankie broke my glasses.
Oh, no. What did he do? How did he do that?
Gap with his mouth.
Oh, I hope they weren't on your face. Were they on your face?
Yes, sir.
They were on your face and he jumped up and he bit you?
He didn't bite me. He jumped up and he grabbed my glasses.
He got your glasses. Did you have to chase him around the house?
Yeah, I did. That was yesterday when I put in the chat, does anybody want to adopt Frankie?
Oh, poor Frankie. Poor Jules. No, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, me too. Anyways.
So for all the new people, there might be some new people. Do you want to just briefly introduce yourself? This is your new show.
Well, I'm Jules, also known as Notorious Jules, thanks to Ethan Shapiro. For all of you that followed the Take Care of Maya trial, you know he was one of the attorneys on Jay Hatch's legal team. And in post motions that he made, post-trial motions, he named me in there and he referred to me as Notorious Jules. And I hated every moment of it, but I have to credit Kurt from Uncivil Law. He's the one who talked me into embracing the name. So I have.
Perfect.
And I just been going to trials, and Chris and I partnered up and we're going to trials together. So that's been really fun. And that's it, really.
Agreed. It's been a great partnership, collaboration. Absolutely love spending time with you. We've spent time in small cars in courtrooms,
in tiny houses.
Tiny houses. Yeah, it's been a blast. I'm looking forward to many more too with you, Jules. So, all right. Shall we bring Kurt, Uncivil Law? You ready, Kurt? All right. Welcome to the show. Hello. How are you?
I'm having a great day. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
So, Kurt, do you want to just introduce yourself? I'm sure a lot of people know you already, but for those that don't, just let people know who you are and where they can find you and what exactly is it that you do?
Sure. So I go by the channel Uncivil Law, and I do legal commentary and discussion. I've been a lawyer for 15 years. I love law. Law kicks ass. I want to talk about it and explain it. And so I get to do that, and it's fun.
Fantastic. Now you love law. Does law love you?
We get along pretty well. Yeah.
It's,
I stay on the right. I stay on the right side of the law, and the law stays on the right side of me.
it's a tenuous relationship.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's get started, Jules. What did you discover? What did you investigate?
Well, this is going to be a throwback to take care of my the star witness. My opinion, he was the star witness, and he was the person that put the nail in the coffin for the Kowalski family, and that is Dr. Joseph Corcoran, also known as Dr. Goodhair. He, as everybody knows, he testified on day 13 of the trial, day 16, 28, and day 30 of the trial. And as a matter of fact, Megan Fox made a comment about Dr. Joe, and it came true. She says, well, he won't have a job for long.
Wow. Okay.
Because of his testimony. Well, I was browsing through, and you know me, I go through court documents and all kinds of stuff. And so I came across a document that was filed by Dr. Joe.
Okay.
He is suing HCA. That is who he was working for. I'm going to try to condense this down as much as possible. I sent the full 68-page document to Kurt for him to go over so he could hit the legal points, because I'm not quite sure on this, but I am going to give you what I took from the document and what my theory is behind why HCA did what they did to Dr. Joe.
Okay.
So
now, before we start, Kurt, do we need to have a disclaimer for anything? Are we going to get in trouble or sued, or do we have to have do you want to say anything about that? Are we okay to do this?
Well, I mean, I would just simply note that we're going to be reviewing a complaint, which is a pleading from one party, and it is designed to be and intended to be as beneficial for that party as possible. So you can reasonably assume that everything in there they perceive to be true from their side, but you shouldn't assume that everything is in there. You should assume that details that may not necessarily be helpful to them may be excluded. So while you can reasonably infer everything they believe is true, that isn't to say that it's everything. So I always view complaints skeptically, because I'm trying to skew against the fact that it's meant to be biased. It's meant to favor one side. So I tend to read it more skeptically, because that brings it back to some sort of middle ground.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. All right, Jules, back to you.
So, and Dr. Joe was employed with ACA for approximately 12 years. Everybody over the last few months has been asking me, where has Dr. Joe been? Where's Dr. Joe been? Do you know? And I've told them the truth. Dr. Joe came out of retirement, and he was working at a hospital in Colorado. He was commuting back and forth from Florida to Colorado, restructuring a hospital there. And he had no choice to come out of retirement because of what HCA did to him. Now, he had his, and I'm probably using the wrong terms, and this is where Kurt's going to have to come in on this, but he had some type of a structural pension, stock pension, something of that sort, that was set up through HCA and Merrill Lynch, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And it was building money. Well, it was approximately 3 weeks after Judge Carroll entered his final judgment, what was awarded by the jury to the Kowalski family. Okay. Once he put that on record, approximately 3 weeks later, And it was a few weeks before Dr. Joe was turning 65. Okay, if you can follow me on this. He was checking his account because the thing was vested and all of this stuff. And once he turned 65, he was allowed to pull from it if he wanted to, or he could leave it there and let it continue to grow, et cetera, et cetera. So he used to check on it on a regular basis, according to what I read. And, one night he went to bed and millions of dollars was there. And the next morning he wakes up, it was gone. Every last penny of it was gone. And
well, not quite, but close. He had lost $2 million of options, and he was left with $21,000.
Yeah, that's a huge difference for sure.
Yeah, $2 million to 21,000 would get my attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's what it's we 1%.
99% of it was gone.
Here for. So he tried to work this out with, according to what I read in the documents, he tried to work this out between him and HCA. Well, what it turns out, what they did was also they backdated his termination date.
Oh, wow.
They backdated it. Yes, they supplied an email chain, which Kurt's going to have to go into that as well. Here's my theory. Okay, I checked, and there are, I don't recall their names, and even if I did, wink, wink, I'm not going to say them on air because I don't want anybody coming after my SSI checks. There are several board members from JHatch and the board of HCA that they all sat on the same board together when I can't now remember if it was HCA. I think HCA and JHatch were getting together, and Dr. Joe was making a new children's unit. So some of the same people were involved in this. So there's a connection for me, my opinion, my speculation, my conspiracy theory, whatever, okay, that there is a connection between JHatch and HCA. Now I'm trying to see if there's a connection between JHatch's law firm, which was Howard Hunter, Hilliard, whatever, and the law firm that's going to be represented for HCA. I haven't been able to make that connection yet. I'm still working on it. But my theory is they were pissed and they did this as an act of retaliation against Dr. Joe for his participation in the Kowalski versus JHatch trial, where $260-something million was awarded to the family, and Judge Carroll brought it down to, I think it was 210 or something like. Irregardless, I really think that this is an act of retaliation. That's my bombshell. Kurt?
So I read this complaint much more as sort of a more banal status dispute. So what we have here is Dr. Joe was working for HCA in Florida. He was offered a promotion from chief medical officer of a hospital to chief medical officer of a division. And that job took him to Nevada. So he was working at a hospital, then he's working a division. So he moves over to Nevada for 3 years. His family's still back in Florida, so he's separated from them. And this is also during the time with the virus, when made travel even more complicated. So at some point he says, this isn't really working for me. I want to move back to Florida. And what the complaint says, at least, is that they tried to find a position for him, but they couldn't find it. Now that sort of makes sense to me because he's, a fairly higher level position. So there's probably not a whole lot of those equivalent positions that are just floating around. So the idea that they couldn't find him something equivalent back in Florida doesn't strike me as inherently like absurd. So in any event, back in 2022, if I understood it correctly, he files a notice of separation, basically saying, I want out. And they offer him some sort of status where he's going to work for, I think, a subsidiary or related company. And so what it gets down to, as I sort of understand in this, is sort of twofold. Whether the time that he worked for the subsidiary or related company counted as full-time towards his initial pension, because these are all options. These are all options relating to service. So like, did that time that he was working for this related company count to it or not? And assuming that it didn't, was he given notification of that? Because he says he was given, at least in the complaint, that he was given both written and oral representations that his options weren't going to expire until sometime in the future. So options do eventually expire. They're options. And so if you don't take advantage of them, at some point they expire. But he was under the understanding, at least according to him, by writing an oral, that those options had not yet expired and would not expire. And so then basically he wakes up one day and they have expired. So he's basically arguing that this is breach of contract. He's arguing that his time that he worked for this related company should count, and it was promised to him it would count, both written and orally. And Merrill Lynch, who was the broker that was holding the options, also apparently made representations to him that those options were still good. And then he just wakes up one day and the options are dead. So to me, it reads more like a slightly banal, although very expensive, contract dispute over, what representations and what promises were made and when and in what way, in writing or orally, as to any potential illicit or improper motive. That isn't brought up in the complaint. There's no real allegations of that this was at least not overtly due to bad motive. So for me, it reads more like a banal contract dispute. But of course, as this goes forward, as it might, it may come to be the case that there were external motivations, but it's a little hard for me to infer that at this time. So for me, I just assume that this is a relatively normal $2 million dispute over whether or not certain representations and certain contracts were in place. That's how I read it. So I'm slightly less conspiracy minded.
Well, that's because you're a lawyer.
Well, lawyers have this phrase. It's like, we only know what we can prove. And so I take the representation as it's been made in the document and I'm like, oh, okay. So this is for me a fairly, what was the contract? What was the contract for the options? What was the promises? What promises did Merrill Lynch make? What writings were made? What representations were made? Are there emails? What record are there of oral presentations or promises? For me, this is a fairly banal breach of contract dispute. So I'm like, okay.
Well, here's my thing is that the whole timing of it, that's where my whole conspiracy thing comes in, was the timing of all of this, the timing of when Dr. Joe testified in court, to the conclusion of the trial, to the conclusion of Judge Carroll. What's the term that they use, Kurt, for once he puts the judgment in for the amount? What is that called again?
Judgment?
When he put it, yeah, all right. When he put the final judgment in, this is how much the family's getting, to several weeks after and just before he turned 65.
Sure.
This happened. And knowing that these two hospitals worked together to form a children's unit, to get the very best children's unit going in Brandon, Florida. And some of the same people were all sitting together, working on this project. So I just find it very suspicious. And I have no faith in our healthcare at all. And we're talking a lot of money here. And I just think that they made Dr. Joe a target.
I mean, there could be nefarious motives involved. And there is $2 million at least that's apparently on the line. So I mean, there's certainly motive. But what we can say is it doesn't seem to have started. It doesn't seem to have started its life in nefarious motive, because a lot of this goes back before at least the judgment. I mean, this goes back to at least back to 2022, when this sort of relationship between them fell apart because they wanted him to work in Nevada. And then he had accepted that position in Nevada, and they were happy for him to work in Nevada. And he was the one initially who said it didn't work for him, which was perfectly reasonable. His family was back in Florida. His family, he had illness issues with his family. He wanted to be there for them. He's like, it's not working for me. I was like, okay. And so it looks like they tried to accommodate him or made efforts. And he's like, well, I wasn't really offered very much, in terms of what I, had. I'm like, but on one level, you're no longer now chief medical officer of a hospital. You're now chief medical officer of a division. So it's like you've moved up in the world, and as you move up and up in the world, there are fewer and fewer of those positions. Those are going to be harder and harder to get. Plus, there are people who might want to have those positions because they've worked for them themselves in their own right. So, trying to accommodate that can be challenging at best. So it's like, okay, we weren't able to make this work. We can't find you an equivalent position to what we had. And you don't want to stay in Nevada, which is fine. So, let's part ways. And it's like, okay, so that's sort of where it starts. And then, he goes to work for this related company. And then there's a whole question of, and things are, according to him, are seamless. He has access to the same portals and the same interfaces and everything because it's a related company. So for him, it was a relatively seamless transition, at least on the interface end. But, it is a legally distinct entity, and there are issues about whether or not that time counts and how it counts. And is that a part-time position? Is that a full-time position? Does it fully vest? Does it partially vest? It gets complicated. So were there motivations beyond, were there nefarious motivations? I mean, that might come up in discovery, and maybe that's the way it turns out. I mean, he's out $2 million. I wouldn't be happy, but I don't want to assume bad motives. I try to assume people are doing the right thing. And, sometimes that doesn't pan out to be true, but it's like, I don't have any reason in the first instance to believe that this wasn't true. Then again, I didn't really have any reason in the first instance to believe J Hatch was doing wrong by Maya. And I defended J Hatch for a while, and I defended J Hatch for a while there. But, then again, I tend to look for the best in people. So what can you do? I'm not totally cynical. And we can't hear our host, which is sad.
We can't hear you, Chris.
Yeah.
He muted himself.
Yeah. I mean, stock options or options of any kind are complicated, and they can be. And then it gets down to the representations and that were made both orally and writing. And he says he has specific names of specific people he talked to. He said that he was being treated, full time. He said he got this pin that was awarded to him for X years of service to say that, he had done his 10 years, I think it was, that he got the award pin for 10 years. And basically, as I sort of understand it, they're now trying to say, basically he didn't work 10 years or he didn't do the equivalent of that. And so he had,
they backdated it. That's the
because they backdated it backwards. So they're saying he didn't really do his 10 years. And so then it's just a question of what time counts and when it counts or doesn't. It's like, well, maybe it should have been backdated. Maybe that was correct. I mean, it could have been wrong, that the date they put down, and maybe the other date. But then even if it was wrong, even if it should have been backdated, then he can rely on that representation, because he's relying on the representation they say. It's like, oh, this day is this date. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to rely on that. And then they say, oops, we made a mistake. It should have been backdated. But it's like, well, I made plans in my own life based on that representation. So now you move from a contract claim into a promissory estoppel claim, because of the promises you made that aren't in contract, because of the promises you made, I made certain decisions based on those representations to my detriment. So you move from a contract claim to a promissory estoppel claim. And it's like, okay, I can figure that out too.
Well, what about when you read in the documents that that email that he included in this document that basically verifies they redacted the name of the party, but they are verifying that yes, they did. In fact, let me see if I could pull it up. Little Miss, I see it. No, he doesn't have anything to do with owing any money from the judgment that the family was awarded.
Yeah. And it's sort of like I say, at the beginning. I believe that everything he believes, I believe that everything he says he believes to be true. And so, like, I believe that he believes these representations happens. And like, to the extent he has exhibits and emails, I was like, I believe that those are real. But what I'm not willing to believe is necessarily that that's everything. I'm not willing to necessarily believe that there weren't other emails or other conversations, things that maybe he's not even aware of, or things that maybe he's not even remembering. I'm not necessarily willing to assume that there weren't like letters sent in the post, to his official address that'll advise him of certain things. I'm not willing to assume that there weren't, other calls or other conversations, or other people might have other memories. So, while I believe that he has a basis to believe that he was shortchanged, while I believe it seems to be a prima facie basis, I believe the complaint is prima facie sound. So I don't think that I don't have, like, it seems prima facie valid, but I'm not willing to say more than that.
You have to explain the term.
On its face.
Okay.
On its face. It's just on its face. It seems right. Like, it's sometimes I'll read a complaint, sometimes occasionally, although it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while I'll read a complaint and I'm like, get out of here. That doesn't make any sense. What the heck are you talking about? Right? It's like, I read the complaint and I just go, blah. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. Stop wasting my time. But, I didn't have that. So I read it. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm ready to hear the next part of the story. I'm like, all right, you've got my attention. I'm ready to hear the next part of the story. That's sort of what I mean by prima facie.
Kurt, here's exhibit. Which exhibit is this? This is exhibit 4. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is an email confirmation to Dr. Joe from Gatlin Willett, I believe that the name is, where in the complaint where it states that there was a phone conversation and then Dr. Joe said, I'm not going to go on with this phone conversation. I want all of this in writing.
You definitely want to get it in writing. It will make your lawyer happier. It'll make either side. It'll make someone's lawyer happier. Having it in writing definitely makes things clearer.
So here's the email to Dr. Corcoran, Dr. Joe, where it says that, blah, 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 I hope this finds you well, Upon reviewing the circumstances surrounding your termination effective March 1st, 2022, it has come to our attention that there were discrepancies in processing your termination, particularly regarding the vesting of PSU and RSU shares. Due to this error, you received vesting of 800. I don't know what any of this means, just so you know. Vesting of 884 PSU shares and 193 RSU shares to which you were not entitled. During our recent phone conversation, you mentioned upon realizing the continued vesting of your shares, you contacted compensation, and it goes on, blah, 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 blah. In light of this, we have agreed to treat January 20th, 2023 as your termination date. Blah, 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 blah. They admit it right there when they pushed it to 2022, they were wrong. And then they agreed with the proper date, and then do the math. The Kowalski's judgment was filed, and then boom.
Yeah.
They took it all away.
To me, this email, when I read this email, basically reflects that he was being jerked around a little bit on the information that he was being provided. And this email to me says, yeah, you were being jerked around a little bit by this, and potentially, here's some things that you've lost. And, they've, some things have been recovered, but other things have not been recovered. And they say like, that they were informed, but it's an issue of when he was informed. But I'm like, yeah, this email is a pretty solid basis for, the being like, okay, this is a email from, the regional VP, human resources. So fairly high person, but it's an email that's like tells part of the story. But, I've been doing this a long time. It's like, does this document in and of itself sell me? No, it doesn't sell me. It's like this document doesn't sell me. I'm not ready to like put my stamp on this and be like, just that, that Joe's right. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes it goes the other way. Sometimes I'm like, this is ridiculous. Or sometimes I'm like, oh, it totally is fine. But this one is like, I want to see more. I want to see the next part of the story. It's like, I believe Dr. C has a fair basis to believe that he was mistreated. The email seems to reflect that there was representations made. He was incorrect representations made that seems to show that they acknowledge those incorrect representations were made. It seems to be like they were going to try to accommodate him, and then ultimately, basically didn't accommodate him. Maybe someone higher up reversed it, maybe a whole bunch of things. But like, yeah, Dr. C has a fair basis for his complaint, but I still want to see more things. And I'm not ready to assume a more nefarious motive other than,
well, as soon as
there was some confusion.
Okay. Well, as soon as I will be checking the docket daily now for a response from HCA's legal team. Yeah. And once I pull it, I will be more than happy to forward it to you. And I could tell you, let me ask you this. What is the likelihood of them settling without going to trial, or they will go to trial? Because Dr. Joe is asking for a jury trial.
Extremely high. I mean, almost all cases settle. Almost all cases settle. It's very, very few cases that don't settle. A lot of lawyers don't see courtrooms because a lot of stuff is done in paper. And so it is by far and away the exception, not the rule, that things resolve somewhere along the line. So my expectation would be that they would reach a settlement at some point before this winds up in trial or arbitration as may be required.
Did you notice who the law firm is that's representing Dr. Joe?
I did not.
Well, the law firm that's representing him in this suit has a fairly new lawyer on board. And that lawyer happens to be Nick Whitney.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought it was very cool. Because I always referred to him as the numbers man during the Kowalski trial.
Well, then this is a great case for him, because this case is numbers. This case will be numbers galore. We're definitely probably going to have to get an accountant at some point involved in this thing. So yeah,
so you think that there's a lot of workings in and out in regards to this lawsuit?
I mean, I just think it's premature to assume nefarious motives. Although I think you're right to ask the question, because the timing certainly could. That's a reasonable basis to say something. But I just find it personally premature. I find it for my taste to be a bit speculative. So I'll just give you an honest opinion, like I always do. And
Absolutely.
and it could well wind up being that Joe is completely right in the end. It could well be right, especially like, because there's this email that seems to be like, you were jerked around a little bit, is the way I'm interpreting and paraphrasing the email. It seems like the email saying, you're kind of jerked around a little bit. We're willing to make some accommodation. And, and then they ultimately didn't seem to even give that in the end. So, he has every right to be miffed. So, and he's looking to, retire and live the good life in Florida. So it's like, I'd like $2 million so I can go retire on the beach too. That sounds great.
Chris?
Yeah.
Why can't we hear him?
I don't know. Are you sure you checked the audio setting within the browser itself? Because sometimes I'll have the wrong thing flip over. I'm running out of things to say about this, unfortunately. I'm wanting to keep riffing on it. I wish I could bring it up and I could show you the documents, but I can't do it. So,
yeah, I can't. I don't have the ability to show the document either.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's you go. Exciting.
Is that the 60-something page document? Yes, it is. So where do you want them to go on that?
I guess the email, I'd go to the exhibit that you mentioned. What was exhibit 3?
No, I believe it was exhibit 4.
Yeah, I think that's where I would start, because I think that sort of encapsulates
it's exhibit 4, Aaron, all the way down at the bottom, page 63, Aaron.
And and again, this is just one email from one person, so there may be other emails from other people. And also, of course, it's only an email from HCA, I believe, so it's not even an email from Merrill Lynch. So bear that in mind. But it says upon reviewing the circumstances of surrounding the termination effective March 1, 2022, which seems to be the date that this transition happened with the Vegas thing. It's come to our attention there's discrepancies in processing, particularly regarding vesting, which is when your options become real, right? So if you've ever entered any sort of stock plan with a company, or if you've entered in like a matching program with a company, a lot of you guys might have like a 401k match with your employer. Most of the time, those options only become real after some period of time. So you might have to work for a year or two or something, or some other condition, until those options, what they call vest. So until those options vest, they're not really real. So your employer will be matching you, for the whole time. But if you leave before you're vested, they just take all the money back, because it isn't real. So when they say options vesting, that's what they mean, that they're actually like yours. So, regarding the vesting of these shares. And so due to this error that you receive vesting, which is to say you received these shares, you received real shares, but they say you're not entitled to those real shares. It's like, okay, so we made a mistake in giving you shares you weren't entitled to. That's what they're saying. All right. During the phone conversation, you mentioned upon realizing the continuing vesting of the shares, you contacted compensation were informed the vesting would continue as long as you remain employed. So options can unvest. That can be a thing that can happen too. So things can vest and they can unvest, and that's all going to be determined by contract. Despite the misinformation, which they're acknowledging happened at this point, we've decided to honor what was incorrectly represented regarding the vesting, which sounds like a really good idea. Because if they made representations, which they're saying they seems to be saying what they said, and he relied on it, it's like, you basically, you promised me, and I continued doing things based on that promise. So, you owe me for the promise. That's like, okay, so that makes sense. And so then in light of this, we've agreed to treat January 20th, 2023 as the termination concerning your employment with this Health Trust Workforce Solutions, this other affiliated company. However, it's important to note that you were not in an equity eligible position for nearly a year. In other words, we're not going to give you shares. That's equity, right? Ownership is equity. And no work was performed in 2023. Subsequently, any unvested equity grants should be canceled. So all that new stuff wouldn't vest because you weren't really working. That's their claim, right? So that period doesn't vest. Unfortunately, due to this error, Merrill Lynch vested these additional shares, which shouldn't have vested. While Merrill Lynch managed to recover the shares vested, the shares that were improperly vested have already been sold, making recovery impossible. So we can't recover the shares because they're already gone. Consequently, the company does not seek recovery of the value of the shares mistakenly vested. So actually what they're saying is you got more than you were entitled to, Dr. C. They're saying we gave you shares that vested that Merrill Lynch sold for money, and they gave you the money, and we can't get the shares back because they've been sold. But we're not going to come after you for the money. So congratulations, you got a bonus you weren't entitled to, is what they're saying. At least in that paragraph.
But Kurt, the issue.
I'm just saying what the email says.
I know what you're saying, what the email is, but from what I got out of the document, I don't remember what pages they were referenced on, but from what it appeared to me is that they backdated the separation, that they took it so far back that they skipped over the 180-day window to exercise the grants. Which
right, and that's what they say in the next paragraph, right? That they say 108 days, but that's like the dispute, because he basically is saying, well, no, I didn't know that. He never agreed to it. He's basically saying, I didn't know the clock was ticking. And they said, you knew the clock was ticking, and you didn't vest your options within the period. And his claim basically is, I didn't know the options were ticking because of representations. But and then there's like, we acknowledge the frustrations and concerns, but so it's like, this is a compromise. So Dr. C is not happy with the compromise. Hence we have a lawsuit. So, I was like, okay. I mean, I'd be pretty frustrated too. Here's a whole bunch of options, investing, and obviously someone pooched this somewhere, because according to them, according to the person who signed this email, we gave you options that vested that shouldn't have, and there was money that was, that you shouldn't have gotten, but we're not going to ask for the money back. It's like, well, someone pooched this somewhere. So who pooched it is a whole nother set of problems. But yeah, someone messed up. Of course, it could be more than one person. Multiple people could mess up, including Dr. C potentially. Sure. So everyone could be responsible. So we'll see how it pans out.
But according to this document, he did not agree to the January 2023 termination date. There's no proof that he agreed to it.
I understand that.
So let me ask you this. When someone first files a lawsuit, any type of lawsuit, not just this particular one, but any lawsuit, do they automatically put all of their cards out on the table?
No, or not automatically. No, and that's going to be more of a stylistic thing depending on the lawyer. Some lawyers tend to be fairly minimal. Almost all lawyers will hold back things. How much they'll hold back sort of depends. But most lawyers hold back and just sort of provide like enough to show the complaint to be like superficially valid. So they're going to provide sort of the minimum amount of stuff to keep the case live. Some lawyers will put more on the docket than that, especially if they're trying to make a point. Like I remember, for example, when like all the voting machine companies were suing over the election, and I remember reading their lawsuit for like defamation, and I was like, oh, because they dumped so much stuff into their lawsuit, because they're like, we are going to prove this. Basically, it's like, we are going to prove our case in our complaint. And boy, man, they just like dumped so much stuff onto the complaint. It was like, wow. But most lawyers don't normally do that. Most lawyers tend to hold back and not reveal all their cards. So there may be other things that Dr. C has to support him that are not here. It would not surprise me.
So basically, we have to wait and see what the response is from HCA in regards to this.
Yeah. And then it's like what the perceptions of the various things are. And of course, from Merrill Lynch, because they're being sued somewhat indirectly, but they're being sued for breach of fiduciary duty because Dr. C has an account with them on a personal level, and so they're a fiduciary to him. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because, there was problems with the stock that they were managing, then therefore that is potentially a breach to him. But they're sort of in here more as an aside, really. At least seems to me. They're really after HCA.
If they have a fiduciary responsibility, though, aren't they also on the hook?
No, I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that his dispute's really with HCA, because they're the one that they're the ones that are arguably jerking this whole thing around. I think Merrill Lynch is just kind of it seems like Merrill Lynch is just kind of doing what they're told in sort of, whose stock is what, and they're just relying on that. I'm not saying that Merrill Lynch didn't make a mistake. It just doesn't seem like they're the villains of the piece. If there's a villain of the piece, it's HCA.
Okay.
I mean, that's the way I sort of read it. I mean, I could wind up being massively wrong in the end. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, because you were massively wrong with J Hatch, so there you have it.
Well, I got more information and changed my mind.
Yeah, exactly. Typically, how long would it take for something to actively happen in a case like this?
Oh, it could take a long time, especially if they get bogged down in discovery. I mean, you'll probably see a response in fairly short order, and then after that, it could take a while, particularly if there's an issue with this potentially going to arbitration in whole or part. If there's an arbitration issue with some of these agreements, which I'm sure there is, then someone's going to be
explain. You have to explain to the chat what arbitration is.
So arbitration is just private court, basically. So it is pretty common these days for many agreements to have a clause in there that basically says, instead of suing each other, we're going to submit this to a private arbiter for a decision. So that takes everything out of the public eye and submits it to essentially a private court. But, the American Arbitration Association is one, and there are lots of these, but, they have some advantages and they have some disadvantages. The big advantage for the companies is they keep them out of the public eye. And so all their dirty laundry isn't put onto the public docket. So if there is a contract that requires some of this to be heard by an arbiter, which I would imagine there is, then there's going to be a fight over whether or not this is actually a lawsuit versus just being submitted to a private court to resolve it.
Mm-hmm. And what's an estimate as far as a time frame for that? I mean, are we talking a year or so, or are we talking we're not talking something like Kowalski versus J Hatch that took 7 years. We're not talking about that length of period, are we?
No, probably not. I mean, if you're trying to realistically estimate this,
mm-hmm.
I'd say 2 years, maybe. Yeah, seems like more of a realistic estimate. Maybe
because here's my my whole issue with this. He turned 65. He was ready to retire, and that was going to be his retirement money, to live on till, God calls him home. And now it's gone, and he's been forced to come out of retirement and go back to work. And it's I just feel like that there's something more going on here. And he put in all of this dedication. I mean, between, medical school and all of this, and all the work that he did all these years, I really do believe in my heart that this has something to do with the fact that he testified in Maya's trial. I see your smirk, Kurt, but I'm being serious. I really feel like this is a boom, we're going to kick Dr. Joe in the butt because he went against the healthcare program.
Well, while I appreciate your belief, as sort of as I said earlier, it's like I sort of on some level only know what I can prove, and so like the reason that I sort of changed my mind on J Hatch was because, well, I was able to prove it, as as Maya themselves were able to prove it, and I was able to persuade myself that that was the right answer, and I got there perhaps slightly late, also possibly because J Hatch's lawyers were deceiving me, but never mind. But it's like I only know what I can prove, and so like at the moment, what I can prove is, okay, there's a dispute over a contract relating to stock options that seems to be costing about $2 million, and I'd be really grumpy too. But I don't know if there's anything more nefarious than that, and so I'm going to reserve anything until I have enough evidence to at least form a basis for that opinion. So I'm not gonna throw them under the bus today.
$2 million is nothing to sneeze at.
I'm not sneezing at it. I'd be pissed.
No, I'm seeing some of the people in the chat, and I'm just saying $2 million. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. To have that taken away from you.
If it were $5,000, I would understand him being mad about it. It's like, that's my $5,000, not yours. This is, it's like, if he believes, if he believes he's entitled to something and not getting every penny. I mean, especially with healthcare. I mean, they probably want every penny. So, on the healthcare side, they'd like every single penny. Do you know a lot of healthcare companies or a lot of insurance companies that wouldn't like another penny? I think they'd like another penny. That would make them very happy. So if their pursuit of every single penny that they can get is a good thing, then I think if it's $5 and if he's cheating him out of $5, I'd be mad. So it's like,
well,
it's like, okay,
these major corporations, whether it's the healthcare industry or whatever, I mean, let's face it, auto insurance, anything, it's all about their bottom line. But when you have employees that worked, he put in 12 years to the company. I mean, it doesn't sound right to me. And Sinbad in the chat wants to know what the dates that Dr. Joe testified. He testified day 13, day 16, day 28, and day 30. And this is off the Law and Crime channel. Because they have it numbered by days. So if you go, you could look at the days, day 13, 16, 28, and 30. And I even have timestamps. I could give them to Chris and he could post it somehow in his, I don't know how YouTube works, but he could post it with the document or whatever. And you guys could go back and look at his testimony, especially, day 30. That was important testimony. And I stand by the fact that he was the nail in the coffin for J Hatch. He brought everything to light on how a hospital is supposed to be run, as opposed to how, All Children's was being run just prior to Maya's admission to even after she was finally released. We still never found out whatever happened in the the JA report. I think that's what it was. Whatever. Yeah, we still to this day we don't know. Howard Hunter made sure he wiggled his way out of providing that after he was ordered twice by Judge Carroll to provide it, and he didn't do it, and we still don't know. And I think that they're pissed at Dr. Joe. Am I wrong, Kurt? I mean, I know you don't agree with me, but am I wrong for going down this road?
I mean, you certainly have a basis for the skepticism, and you have a basis for the thought. So it's not like it's baseless. But I'm just trying to assess. I try to assess every case onto its own merits as much as I can. And I J Hatch did some really reprehensible things, and their lawyers, in particularly, at times I felt very deceived by their lawyers, which made me very, very grumpy. But I'm just trying to be fair, like any adjudicator. Just trying to be fair. And so for me, it's like, okay, I think that there seems to be a basis here. This email to me seems to reflect that he was being jerked around and told different things. And there were an acknowledgement of some of these representations that were made. And it seems like there's a basis to believe that he's being shortchanged. And I'd be mad, and I'd be suing for $2 million. But I just want to see the other side of the story. I want to see what HCA and Merrill Lynch has to say, and what their perspective on the situation is. And perhaps they have other facts that Dr. C is perhaps not necessarily bringing to our illumination. So yeah.
Yeah. What do you call it? And I see some people in the chat making comments. Dr. Joe was not fired. When we use the term termination date, that is the day that he ended his employment, that he was retiring. It does not mean he was fired. That's not what's happened here at all. Let me ask you this: if it's okay with Chris and Aaron with Trial TV Live, when the attorneys for HCA do file a response to this lawsuit, and we pull the documents, Kurt, would you be willing to do this again and go over that one? Yeah,
quite possibly. It'll be interesting to see what their perspective looks like. And it would be interesting. What would be particularly interesting to me is if there were other correspondence that were made that were not referenced in this lawsuit, in terms of writings, letters. Everyone remember postal mail? That still exists. Letters that were sent that reflected certain things, or other ways that he was being told about things. It's like, so yeah, I would definitely be interested in see what they have to say, and maybe we'll be in a better position to assess. I think right now it's premature for me to even say that I think that this is like more likely than not. I think that, for me at this point, I just have like baseline confidence in it. So I'd say, right now for Dr. C, I'm giving, like a 25% assessment. It's like, it looks superficially correct. This is stocks and stock options and things like that can get very complicated. So it's like, yeah, I want to, plus there's multiple agreements. There's an agreement with Merrill Lynch. There's an agreement with HCA. There's an agreement probably with this other company he signed. There's probably multiple different agreements. How many parties are this? 3 different parties. There's probably 5 agreements at least between the 3 parties. It's like, so it's like, this is going to be a complicated contract case. I would think it's going to require a lot of attention, a lot of anal attention to detail to work through all these contracts and figure out what says what. So it's going to take some time.
Well, I see people in the chat saying that I'm taking this personal. I'm not taking it personal as far as where Dr. Joe is concerned. I'm passionate about this. I was passionate throughout the Maya trial, and I am passionate about this because I do remember clearly, and I don't remember which day of testimony it was, but it came out in trial that not just the patients were being treated badly, but their own employees were being treated badly. And so, but everyone was with the IJ report, no one wanted to say anything because they were afraid of losing their jobs. So it started off, I remember them saying, even down to the sanitation department, you know, the people that were picking up the trash from room to room, you know, things were so off all the way around that even to me, this something's not right, because they mistreat their own, and it's not just JHatch. Apparently, this happens in hospitals across the country. Okay, there's problems, and yeah, I think the hospital needs to be held accountable. And if all of this is correct of what I've interpreted in this document, then hell yeah, Dr. C, he deserves that money back.
Would it be too much of a problem if I signed off for now? I don't
No,
want to
I'm
leave you
good.
guys in a lurch. All right. Well,
No.
in that case, I'll simply sign off for now and say that I've really enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing the response. And, you know, in the end, of course, may the law prevail. You know, may justice be done in the end. That's all that you can really hope for. But you can check me out on my channel, Uncivil Law. We do a lot of Supreme Court analysis, U.S. Supreme Court analysis, Court of Appeal cases, do a lot of like heavy legal analysis, and try to understand the law better. So if you're into that kind of thing, check me out. I've been Uncivil Law. Until later, my friends, I'm out. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Kurt. Love you. Everybody sub to his channel. That's about all we've got. Unfortunately, Chris's mic isn't working.
Well, I'm going to
Oh,
try.
wait, oh, he works. It works.
It works. Okay. Well, Kurt, I hate to say it. Maybe it was you. No. Yeah, I said hello. You came on. It wasn't you, Kurt. Only kidding. Thank you so much for being with us, Kurt. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to having you back on again for sure. Love your legal mind and your analysis. A lot of people are saying, where do I stand? Being the son of a lawyer, I'm on both sides. I see all sides. Jules, I appreciate your passion, and I do see the timing is very sus. But Kurt, there's not enough evidence. You're only seeing one side. We're only seeing one side of the story right now, and I want to see what HCA's response is. I'm sure they'll have a completely different take on it, and they'll say their story, and then we'll have to take both, and then it goes to arbitration or it goes to a jury. You know, we'll just have to let time pass and see what happens. But Jules, fantastic breaking of the story. You know, kudos to you.
You know that I will be checking the county clerk's site every day, and the minute that response is filed, you're getting it, Chris.
Yeah. And what else do you have? What else are you going to be investigating? What else do you have your nose to the ground on?
I have
Are you going to tease us? You're going to tease us?
Right now I'm digging my heels into this. Yeah, I'm digging my heels into this. I still want to find out if there's any connection between HCA, the law firm that's representing HCA, and the law firm that represented JHatch. I just out of curiosity, I just want to see if there's any connection there, because I know for a fact that there is a connection between the two hospitals when they were building this, a children's wing. So, yeah. And to answer Sinbad's question, yeah, I will just say this. The entire LawTube community has been put on alert to this lawsuit today. So, yes. But
is that
we did it first.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was going to call that out. Should I not call that out about a certain lawyer that we met the other day? Should I?
I sent it to Peter.
Oh, okay. So is that something that you is that something that you think he would take, or what do you think?
During the Maya trial, Peter didn't do too many streams on there. I don't know if because he's a personal injury attorney and this is in his area where this is taking place. So what do you call it? He didn't do a whole lot. He did do some stuff, but not a whole lot. And also too, I think he may have been in front of Judge Carroll a time or two. So I don't know if Peter's going to cover this or not, but I did send him an email and I attached the document and I said, do with what you want with this. I did that today, just like I did to Kurt. I did, this morning. I sent it off to Rob from Law and Lumber. I sent it to Megan Fox. I sent it to Melanie Little. So it's up to them. If they decide that they want to go for it, I hope they do, because I would like to see what the LawTube community's thoughts are in regards to this.
Yeah. Do you know what county? Is it Hillsborough County this was filed in? Do you happen to know the county?
It is.
Hillsborough?
Hillsborough.
It's Hillsborough, okay. Which is Tampa, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share what county? So it's Hillsborough County, which is basically Tampa, Florida. So
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we enjoyed we thoroughly enjoyed Kurt being with us today. Thank you so much again,
I
Kurt.
do too. I
Uncivil
love
Law.
him to death.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll sort out the
And when
microphone. Next time you're on, I'll sort out the microphone so all three of us can be on. Well, Jules, there was an echo. I guess when you were talking, there was an echo, so that's why I plugged in my headphones, and then it went south after that. But it's all good now.
When I first started watching the LawTube community in the early days of the Johnny Depp trial, and I would catch, this was when Kurt was not, he was like, yeah, Johnny Depp doesn't have a prayer in the world. And I found him to be brash. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like this guy or not. So I was like, ooh, seriously. Yeah. And then the more I interacted with him and the more I've been on streams with him, I love the guy. I do. I absolutely love Kurt. He's been very kind and very gracious to me. When I've asked him for, advice, he's been very accommodating. You just, he has a wicked sense of humor. Sometimes he does take it a little too far, but I just I love him. And I'm so grateful that, he came on your channel today.
Yes. Thank you, Jules. As always, you always are presenting us with the best of the best in the LawTube community. First Peter and now Kurt. So I have the honor of meeting them both, and thanks to Jules. So appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
So chat, we're going to post what Jules found on our community page after we finish this. So you'll be able to see that there. That would be Trial TV Live community page. Jules, what else? Anything else you want to cover, or you're not going to tell us what you're working on next, right? Going to keep that? Okay.
No.
Oh,
Julia. I have stuff to do. I mean, I will definitely keep you keep you apprised of this case, but I have other stuff I'm looking into. No problem.
I guess that's it then for today. So just to recap, the big news is that you found some documents about HCA, did some maybe suspicious, nefarious things as far as Dr. Joe was concerned, meaning they took 1.5 million that was due to him, and then they took it down to like 21,000 overnight. He had a 180-day exercise window, but they unilaterally decided to change that on him. And by the time he responded, they said, nope, sorry. Is that a fair recap? And now he's suing them.
It is a fair recap. However, can I add just one thing? I know people are getting
Absolutely.
sick of me saying it.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
When you read this document, look at the dates in question and compare those dates to the dates that Dr. Joe testified in the trial. Remember, he testified 4 times. So you look at that, and also go back on the court record. I can't remember the exact date. I think it may have been January 13th, somewhere in there, in that time frame, or the 18th. That is when Judge Carroll made the judgment of record for the Kowalski family. And 2 weeks after this happened. So I still say something's not right.
The timing of it definitely makes you scratch your head, for sure. Absolutely. But then to Kurt's point, it is just one side, so we have to hear from the other side as well. Now, what do you think about this, Jules, from Erica Olson? Dr. C needs to do a live to say hello. I know he can't talk about the case, but be nice to hear from him. We know he's not going to talk, but what do you think?
No, I'm sure he's not going to discuss this. Not unless his attorney is on board with it. But I do know that he will be in next year, which is literally around the corner. Keep an eye out. He's coming back to YouTube in regards to the healthcare industry and how, we as the public and, can help each other to make it better. So, yeah. And Crystal H in the chat, if you would send me a message on Twitter with that person's name, I will look it up for you for sure. So yeah, that I don't know. That's Dr. Joe.
Yeah, he did do a community post. He talked about this, and he led people to this this stream of ours, of yours. Yeah. Oh, bless you, says Judge Kranick. Not Mr. Kranick, Judge Kranick. We read her letter yesterday, Jules.
I listened to the first hour of you guys, and then I had to go to bed. But
yeah, we read the unredacted, unedited. What I want to do, I would love to do a comparison to see what Mr. Owens actually edited out. That I would like to do at some point.
3/4 of it, Chris. I mean, 3/4 of it. I mean, it was bad enough she addressed Judge Kranick as Mr. How disrespectful is that?
Black robe disease.
Yeah. I know. It was unbelievable. And then with what she said about Mr. J, about that comment, he didn't drop the mic, he dropped the bat. And I remember that moment in court. I remember sitting there when he did do that after he hit the suitcase. So yeah, I don't know what she expected to gain by all of this, other than she wanted to let us all know she hates us very much.
Yep. Yeah. The social media mavens or moguls or whatever she called us. Yeah. Making blood money off of her. It was an interesting read. I'll put it that way.
I didn't make a dime.
Yeah. I know. I got demonetized. We got demonetized. So we're not making anything off you, Sarah. So there.
Really.
We're doing this all out of, I don't know, kindness of our hearts. It's a labor of love.
It is a labor of love. For me, it is. And I know for you, Chris, you are just like me. This is our passion. And some people think we're a little cuckoo, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I like this stuff. What can I tell you?
I do. Erin is the one that she if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be doing this, I think, because we would be doing something else. I was going to do, I had a jamming with Cam. I was going to do guitar lessons and music lessons, but we thought this would be more viable.
Oh, I'm so glad that you did this instead.
I'm glad I did that too. Because see that guitar back there? It's just going to sit there.
It's still sitting in the same spot.
I want to pull this up, Fanny
Yeah.
Pack, because RA is going to be on Broken Baker in the morning, and Squeegee of Justice is going to be on Broken Baker next Thursday, 9:00. So we are going to be on
I
Broken
was just
Baker.
going to
as
say,
well.
wow. And then
Yes.
isn't Peter and Scott supposed to be doing something on Monday?
Oh, that I don't know. I haven't heard that. You heard it here first. Jules is breaking news
They're
left and
doing
right.
something on Monday.
Okay, we'll have to. Where was that announced?
I do believe they are doing a podcast. I do believe that they are doing a podcast. And yes, OnlyFan, Erin is the bomb. She's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. I love her. I'm old enough to be her mother. But we call her soul sisters instead.
All right.
Yeah. See, I knew it.
Yes, you
Thank you. Thank you, Megan.
Yes.
So,
Yes, it was.
So there's a lot going on.
There is. Oh, we'll pull one more up. Everybody's giving Erin some love. Erin is the wizard of Erin.
Julia, and I know Julia 543 from RA's channel, and I think from Peter too as well. So yeah, I see a lot of names that are in the chat from other channels. So I'm so glad everybody showed up.
Yeah, we had an RA raid because we told Scott about it. We were texting him and we told him, and then I think we were listening to him like 5-10 minutes before, and he said, come on over here to check it out. So,
well, thank you, Scott, as usual, for sending everybody over. Chris and Erin, totally appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, are we
and
good?
And you're going to hit that like button. Y'all need to hit that like button.
Yes.
Very,
leave
very
comments.
important.
Yep.
And leave comments below after the stream ends, and let us know if you think I did a crappy job, say it. If you think I did an okay job, say it. If you think I broke a news story, say it. Give kudos to Chris and Erin. Just get them comments in there after the stream ends. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah. Well, let's see. Yeah, we do Wednesdays. We do Wednesdays at 8:00, at 8 at night. Jules has been on often. Next Wednesday, we have Legal Minded Friends, Karen Cole. She's a practicing lawyer in the UK, and she's Canadian, so she's going to give us that perspective. I think that's going to be really interesting. I spoke with her today, and we had a really nice chat and a really good rapport. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then, Jules, you're always welcome to come on. You know that, and we have to have you on again. Now that we have this side broadcast of yours, we have to have. Once you break some more stories, we'll have you back on for sure.
I'll give you a hint.
Oh, please do.
I'm doing a deep dive into Luigi Mangione.
Oh, okay, yeah. Did you see the 286? Did you see the 286 number? Have you seen that? Sneaky Side posted that today. And guys, check out Sneaky Side. She's another really great, I don't know what, supporter, family member. She's been on our show a couple times. She does some fantastic work. Is it posted?
No. Just Ozzy.
Oh, where's Ozzy?
Well.
Oh, Ozzy. Loving this channel, but not keen on this update. To me, seems another spin-off drama from a big trial, similar to Karen Reed. Sorry. Okay, fair enough.
That's fair.
Hey, it's news, and we're breaking it, Ozzy. Take it for what it is. It's news is news, and we're going to break it no matter what. If we didn't break it, somebody else would. So why not?
I happened to find it, and I thought this was the star witness from a major high-profile civil case. Why not?
Why not?
I think
somebody's going to break it.
It was newsworthy. Yeah, and it to me it's newsworthy.
Yep, I agree,
It's
100%.
newsworthy.
Yeah. Somebody's going to break it, so it might as well be us. Might as well be you. So thank you for bringing it to us first. We really appreciate that. All right, Jules, have a wonderful weekend. I'm sure we'll be probably talking to you in about 5 minutes after we hang up here, because there's probably much
Well,
more.
I might not be talking to you, but I definitely will be talking to Aaron. There's Sneaky.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll sit in my corner and drink my wine and have a nice Friday night.
Yeah,
All
everybody
right.
have a wonderful weekend. And Chris and Aaron, thank you so very much for letting me break this here. I truly appreciate you guys. I love you. And I'm going to let Chris do his closing. See you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jules. See ya. Have a good night. Julia 543, you are sticking around to comment afterwards. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah, we got demonetized right before Thanksgiving. We appealed and they denied our appeal. So, we're doing other things. If you want to support us, we're on Patreon. Buy a cup of coffee and Venmo. That always helps. But just subscribe. We're at, we hit 52. We're at 5238, so 5,238. When we started this stream, we were at 5180, 51. Yeah. So great. Yeah, we just gained about 50 subs. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate that. Next week, we're going to be covering a new trial. Let me get my notes here. We're going to do Megan Boswell. We're going to start with Megan Boswell. Jury selection starts on Monday, so we're going to pick up on that. I believe that's out of Tennessee. Now, there are 3 other trials. The Verlazo just ended. We might pick up on that maybe, once the holidays kick in. Celeste Owens and Bob Lee, those are some other trials that are going on. But Megan Boswell, we're going to pick up on Monday. And our wonderful mod therapist, is graduating her master's on Saturday. So all of our mods are going to get together and we're going to support her and watch out for that in the future. We may do something about that. Thank you to Erin, who sits behind the scenes and does all the wonderful things. You guys have no idea what she does. OnlyFan, Julie, Brat, Jules, Florida PI Sam, Unbalanced Equation, Fun Facts. They are the best mod squad that anybody could ever have. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining us. We love you. And thank you, Kurt, again. Thank you, Jules, and have a great weekend. And we will see you all on Monday. All right. Have a great night.